Good morning, New York Comic-Con. That was good, but not great. One more time. Good morning, New York Comic-Con. My name's John Cunningham. I work for DC. Welcome to our 10th New York Comic-Con, because this is how many they've done. Standing here today, I cannot believe there's been 10 of them. I believe the first New York Comic-Con was held in a space the size of this room. And anybody who was there knows that, and certainly the fire marshals of New York City know that as well. Time passes. That's the message there, and that's a perfect theme for the panel we're about to talk about today, how time passes and how everything gets better with time. Enough of me. Let's get to the reason you're here and introduce our panelists. First up on the stage is the co-writer of the upcoming Dark Knight #3. His run on the New 52 Wonder Woman redefined this character for a new generation of readers. Along with Eduardo Risso, he created the estimable 100 Bullets, perhaps the high water mark for noir comics. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Brian Azzarello. Our next guest got his start as a letterer at DC Comics. He then moved over to Marvel and illustrated a number of notable books, including X-Men, Origin, and 1602. He came back home to DC in 2005 and has since worked on such classic books as Flashpoint, Whatever Happened to the Caped Crusader, and Damian, Son of Batman, which he also wrote. He is the penciler for DK3, and his name is Andy Kubert. Like this room, we get intro music for everybody. That's the greatest thing ever. All right, making his first DC Comics New York Comic-Con appearance on our stage is this legend of the comic book industry. His pencil and ink work has graced such classic books as Marvel's Defenders and his 8-year legendary run on Daredevil. He also worked on The Dark Knight Returns, Batman Gothic, and basically any cool book you've read in the last 25 years. It's my esteemed pleasure to welcome to our stage the inker for DK3, Mr. Klaus Janson. And finally, this guest, his work on Batman Hush redefined the character for a new generation of readers. He collaborated with Mr. Miller on the best-selling and controversial All-Star Batman and Robin. His work on Batman Europa is coming next month. Oh yeah, he also co-founded Image, Wildstorm, and is now the co-publisher of DC Comics. Please welcome Mr. Jim Lee. I think to talk for the first time in public about DK3, I think we need to start at the beginning and do a little bit of refresher course about how we got here. In 1986, DC Comics published The Dark Knight Returns, a watershed book now in the history of comics. Its deconstruction of the superhero mythos was unheard of at that time. Now it's the common language of the medium. But even more, the series established a storytelling language that is still used in comics today. DKR was a revolution on the page. Let's just say, though, that perhaps not everybody thought so at the time. In prepping for this, I was researching, and I found in 1987, the New York Times Book Review reviewed the book when it was published in hardcover form, and it was reviewed by a gentleman named Mordecai Richler, who's a Canadian literary author. And I want to share with you what he said at the time. The story is convoluted, difficult to follow, and crammed with far too much text. The drawings offer a grotesquely muscle-bound Batman and Superman, not the lovable champions of old. My oldest son, an expert in these matters, has suggested to me the inspiration is not so much old comic books as rock videos. I think he's right. Here's your payoff line. If this book is meant for kids, I doubt they will be pleased. If it is aimed at adults, they are not the sort I want to drink with. As quite often happens in these cases, Mr. Richler was entirely incorrect. All right, in 2001, the second volume in this story, The Dark Knight Strikes Again, was published. Hey, let's be honest, following a revolution is a fool's game, and the critical consensus here was less than pleasant. But I want to say this, having reread the book to prep for this panel, and I hadn't reread it in many years, I was struck by just how good it really is. I can't recommend highly enough that you put past what you may have thought before and read it again was terrific. In the end of this story, the hollow truce between Batman and Superman was shattered by Batman's genius plan in destroying the leaders of an ever more fascistic America. So now here in 2015, we're bringing you the third act of this story. And you people are going to be lucky enough to see some of the first pages yet from Dark Knight. Hang on. What? Fletcher Chufong, ladies and gentlemen, our convention manager, embarrassing me on stage. He's embarrassing me because here in front of 4,000 people, I screwed up the whole panel. I forgot to do something, so I'm going to do it now. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Dark Knight himself, Mr. Frank Miller.
Thank you.
Okay, so as we said, we have some artwork to show you, but I think we should talk a little bit about, before we and tease this out a little bit more and talk about how this got started, perhaps. So Jim, since you're the co-publisher, I want to start at the top, and maybe you can, maybe not go all the way back, but when you think of how DK3 started as a project, what is your sense memory?
There are two kind of touch points. The first actually was a long time ago. It was at Chicago Con, and for some reason, Brian Azzarello, myself, and Frank Miller were just hanging out in the evening, and all I remember is just driving around in a cab or a car, and the whole time we're just kind of talking about superheroes, DC characters.
It was a hearse.
Huh?
Yeah, it was a hearse.
It was a hearse. But out of that came, and we were working on All-Star Batman and Robin, and out of that night came that whole kind of infamous battle between Batman and Green Lantern that was in All-Star Batman and Robin. But it really talked about sort of the absurdity of these characters and how over-the-top and bombastic they are, and that we can't walk away from that. We have to embrace how, on one hand, how iconic and powerful these characters are, and on the other hand, they're inherently kind of absurd. Then flash forward many years later to about 3 years ago, Dan DiDio and myself, we met with Frank off and on. He wanted to get back to his primary passion, which was comic books, and he had an idea for this story, which is really building off of what he set up in Dark Knight Returns and Dark Knight Strikes Again, and really was an expansion of that universe. And to, again, revisit this incredible relationship that he set up in DKR between Superman and Batman, and then talk about really passing of the baton to Carrie and Lara. And so the story really, this finale to this, or not finale, this third act to this story really focuses on those kinds of themes. And so at that point we were sold. It was just a matter of then finding the right artist. A lot of people threw their names in the ring, myself included. Then Dan said, well, you know, the book does have to come out. And so I quickly took myself out of the running.
So why'd you ask me?
That's right. You're a professional, Andy. And Andy, we needed a guy that was super professional, a great draftsman, and could also really kind of take up the artistic baton where Frank left it, which is to do something that had really powerful narrative, great storytelling, but also a style that was kind of very contrasty, that felt really right for the world of Gotham. And when you see these additional pages coming up, you'll see that Andy really knocked it out of the park. So, yeah, that's it.
All right.
But I got to tell you, it wasn't just me that, you know, really I dialed my art down a lot, and I tried to get as contrasty as I possibly could. But this gentleman right here really helps me out a lot, man. Right. I mean, he adds a lot to it. And I got to tell everybody here.
Don't trust him. I know.
No. It is such an honor for me to be sitting up here with everybody. I swear. Usually it's me sitting back in there, but to sit up here with everybody, it's really a treat. It's something else.
Okay, so we'll work our way. We'll start with Brian here. So DC decides with Frank, we're going to work on this project. Now we have to find talent. Who called you, Dan?
Who called me Dan?
No, who
they
called
me
you,
Brian.
comma, Dan,
I call him
question
Dan,
mark.
but only in really intimate moments.
Who called me? First, it was Jim. But that was 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. About this, yeah. That you know, Frank was interested in revisiting this stuff, and he was interested in me visiting with him. So you know, when that call was like, yeah, sure. And then I didn't hear anything for 2 years. And then about a year ago, Dan called, and he was, hey, listen, we've got this project that you need to be involved in. And I said, you know, I got enough on my plate. And then he took my plate away.
Give you another plate.
And we went over to Frank's studio. We talked about this story, and it sounded like this was going to be a pretty fun project to be working on together. And now you're all here.
All right, so Frank, perhaps you can, we have a lot of pages, mostly penciled in ink, that we can show from the book.
Yeah.
But I don't really want to start showing anybody until you've had a chance to set it up or say anything, if you want to say it, about what this work is, how you conceived of it, and how it's going for you.
Well, this is not my conception. This is Brian's. You know, I set up a realm in which Batman would operate and tried to stay true to the character. And Brian is now expanding on the storyline that I introduced. But these are DC's characters remain so, and it's their world. So all I can say is they picked a perfect team. I couldn't be more thrilled, and I'm just dying to read it.
And I skipped going down the line and talking to Klaus. So you came back to DC and worked on Superman, and then obviously this came around. And what was your reaction when they asked you to work on the project again?
I was incredibly happy and incredibly intimidated at the same time. You know, there was a lot of cloak and dagger about this project. There was a lot of, you know, intrigue, a lot of backstabbing. I'd known about this project for a while, and you know, I have to tell you honestly that you know, I go kind of way back with Frank, and we had done 2 really good projects, I thought. You know, one was Daredevil and one was Dark Knight Returns, and I really had always had this secret hope that we would do a 3rd one, just because 3 is such a, you know, perfect number. And when this came around, I was just incredibly pleased. It's a wonderful opportunity to work with Frank again. You know, there's one reason why Dark Knight Returns was such a success, and that's Frank Miller. And to work with somebody like Frank again is great.
Thanks, Klaus.
So let me just say I'm incredibly happy to be working on this project, and I'm extremely happy to be here with you guys today. So thanks so much.
Okay, so as I don't get this opportunity very often, standing at a microphone. I'm just a lonely paper pusher inside a publishing company. But about a week or so ago, you should be aware that projects like this are done very secretively. I'm sure if you're a comics fan, you can't imagine why. It's not like stuff leaks or anything like that. So even within working in the halls of DC Comics, information was not easy to come by. But last week, faced with the prospect of getting up on stage, I went to Mark Doyle, who's the editor in charge of this project, and begged and pleaded my case. And Mark sort of gave me the overview of the entire arc of the story, and then I saw the entire first issue completed. And what I wanted to say to everybody, and again, I'm paid by the company, so take this as you will, but I would not lie to you. You'll just have to believe that. This book is going to blow your socks off. It is not what any of us are expecting at all from this story. And I am not going to be the person that spoils
Better be
it.
what Brian's expecting.
But what I will say is this, without trying to be too spoiler-filled, if the first volume of this book was, as I indicated earlier, a deconstruction of the superhero mythos, I I think you're going to be very surprised by what happens at the end of volume 3 of this story. And it does, as was alluded to a few moments ago, complete an arc in a way that I don't think I was anticipating as a reader. And I'm very confident that you're going to feel the same way. So with that said, we're going to start showing some pages. There is your cover of issue 1. We're going to just run through some of these pages. Again, fascinating to watch how Andy's work is adapting to this style of storytelling.
But if you guys have seen my work before and you see the difference in it, but when you dial something down like this from what I usually do, there's a lot more thought involved into it. It looks a lot simpler, but it was pretty harrowing, actually, to try to come up with the spotting of the blacks and to get it more graphic, from what I'm used to doing. I don't know, it's just a lot of fun to do.
I think the wonderful thing about what Andy is doing is that the pages are so recognizably Dark Knight. It takes place in the Dark Knight world. The pacing, the rhythm, the use of blacks, as Andy mentioned, is all very reminiscent of Dark Knight. It's identifiably Dark Knight. It looks like no other comic except Dark Knight. And I think that's one of the wonderful advantages of this project, is that it is so. It's a continuation of what Frank had established in the first Dark Knight.
And it makes it even more so after Klaus inks it. Like the batch you just sent, the batch of pages you just sent. Oh, they were gorgeous. Right. They were beautiful.
Well, I'm just a tracer.
No, he's not.
You heard it here first, folks. Come on, Klaus.
Come on, Klaus. You're a tracer with a capital T.
So the next batch of art we want to show is from the second book that is contained inside your package of DK3. And Jim, maybe you can take a minute and just explain to people how the packaging of this book works. Because as innovative as it is in storytelling and the way the art looks, I think you're going to find that the innovation in packaging and the way the story is presented to you as readers is very different this time.
What we're doing differently on this project is that the periodical comic book will have a mini comic bound inside. All right, so this mini comic is about 5 inches by 7 inches or so, and it'll have a separate story that is running in parallel to the main story that Andy's drawing, and we're gonna have different guest artists do this mini comic. And the first one is drawn by Frank Miller, inked by Klaus, and it's a story featuring the Atom. And if you look at the top, it says Dark Knight Universe Presents, I think. And so subsequent mini comics will focus on the Flash and Wonder Woman, and all these, again, are essential to the main story, but you read them separately in parallel. So what's great about this is that Frank really wanted to create, he loves doing creative things, and he also wants to do things that kind of fill you with wonder. And I think that's really the heart of what comic books are about. When you open the pages of a comic book, you are immersed into this world, and you have fun. You have this crazy adventure. And so he wanted to do a comic book where you opened it, and this mini comic book fell out and onto the floor. And we said, you know what, that's a great idea, but we can't do it because all the retailers will, call for our heads, right? Can you imagine, like, you buy a comic book, the mini comic's not inside, or it's damaged because it fell, all those kinds of things. And so we went through this very arduous task of figuring out how to do this. And so we did a lot of tests on strips and how to hold it with adhesive, and then we decided we're going to put staples in it or not, because the staples, when you put it inside a comic book and put pressure on it, those staples will indent the paper around it. And so we actually did a test where we produced a whole case of dummy books, stacked them, and saw the impact of the weight of the comic book. So a lot of thought went into this. That's what I'm trying to say at the end of the day. But we're really happy with it. I think it kind of gives Frank what he was intending to do, which is, again, you open it up and you get something you never expected to get, and that you are drawn into this magical world. And I think the second chapter is going to be drawn by Eduardo Rizzo. So there's some really fabulous talent that we've got lined up to do these mini comics going forward.
Yes, Mr. Miller still draws a mean comic book page, ladies and gentlemen.
Right. So I have a question for you, Klaus. When you were inking those pages, was it literally like kind of getting back on a bicycle, or did you have to kind of work through it and get your bearings after like 3 pages or so? Or I don't know. Because those first 2 are really...
I thought, honestly, it was the most nerve-wracking job I've ever done. It was because, you want to make Frank happy. I want to make you happy. I want to make everybody happy. And I really was sweating bullets on this one, but you know, it was the first time Frank and I had worked together in 30 years. So there was, you know, I think a little bit of pressure involved.
Boy, that's scary.
Yeah. But you know, I would do a panel or two, and I would think to myself, wow, this kind of looks like Matt Murdock, you know, or you know, this looks like Dark Knight, you know, this looks like our stuff, and I was happy to be able to get to that point. But when I handed in the pages, I was very, very, very relieved. That was extremely.
So Brian,
Yes,
you aren't
John.
showing any pages that have letters of the words that you've written here, so I feel like you're being left out a little bit, and I know how much you like to talk when you're on panels.
About as much as I like to talk in the comic books.
Exactly.
Answer.
I don't worry. Maybe I'm wrong about this. You've worked on a lot of big projects that are in your face where expectations were different, like Before Watchmen, where you did a number of those books. I can't imagine you being intimidated, having known you for all these years. Am I wrong about that?
No, I wasn't intimidated at all. Yeah, you were right about that. It was just like, you know, I went over to talk to Frank, and he's like, you know, let's do this. I'm like, yeah, sure. I mean, it was great to be able to work with a friend.
You got to understand. DC let me play with their toys. Then Brian asked me if he could play with DC's toys the way I treated them. No egos were bruised. No feet were stepped on.
But just, you know, the reason why I brought up the whole Chicago incident was that, I mean, that was like the first time you guys met, but they really hit it off creatively, just the ideas that they were throwing back and forth. And I thought they were just goofing around. and then I got the script for the Green Lantern Batman fight, and I realized, no, they were dead serious about this. But what they're doing is a very unique kind of thing. It's not like they're just calling each other on the phone or emailing. Brian actually flies into New York City, every 6 weeks? Month,
every month,
and goes to Frank's studio, and they basically sit and talk about story and craft dialogue and plot the story, and so it's a very intensely collaborative project. So there's a lot of great stuff that comes out of being able to work with someone in person, and you're going to see that love and collaboration on the page.
Well, we're constantly trying to make each other laugh, and that's why we're coming up with these crazy ideas for these characters. Like there's a couple Superman bits in this book that just, you're gonna like Superman again.
Not if I can help it. Right. No, but to reiterate, and I'm not being at all modest here, I'm consulting. This is Brian's show.
Well, you're being modest.
Shut up.
Yes, boss.
So, Brian, where are you in your scripting process right now? And I'm only asking that as somebody who deals with scheduling books at DC.
Oh, well, then you're not going to like my answer. We're on the third one. Yeah. And then there's something else too, but we're on the third one. With the minis, we had to kind of go back and pull out different bits of the big story, because we're trying to get those all doled out to different artists right now, so that slowed things down a little.
And one other note to add about how we're distributing this book is, we're speaking of innovation, there's also going to be a limited print run, issue by issue, what we're calling a hardcover compendium, or a hardcover collection. Those will be available in comic stores as well.
Oh, you're going after every penny they've got, aren't you?
Yep. Yep. We haven't even started talking about collected edition plans, absolutes, any of the rest of that. If you're a DC fan, you know how this is going to work out over the course of time. But I think it's a work that really demands that sort of treatment, that inspires people to think innovatively about what's going to happen and how to present this work. Nothing more exciting in the last year, as Jim alluded to, than sitting in meetings where our head of production is showing us different glue types and what the different ways you can glue a mini comic into a book are, and what the properties of those glues are, right. And why one glue is better than another glue.
No, the first batch, it stained the paper. You can't have that, right? So, anyway. Oh, also one other thing on these hardbound collector's edition, They're actually deluxe format, so they're larger, about the same size as a Killing Joke. And it'll also have the mini comic printed full size. So the only way to get the mini comic is in the periodical itself. Oh,
Vince Material from our sales department, who always carries this around with him now.
There we go.
What is that?
That's going to be the
This is the mock-up.
Each individual hardcover will come out right after the printed issue, but the final one will come with the slipcase. So you've got to buy volume 1 to get in on the game.
I better get some copies of this, mister.
Okay, our friends at Reed have microphones on either side of the aisle. A few of you who've played this game before have already started lining up to ask questions. I will call on you one by one, and we're going to start over here on the right. First question.
Hi, it's Rob and Jax from right here in Queens, New York. We wanted to know what characters would the panel like to bring and that are currently being used and enhance them by doing something different with them like Frank did by bringing back the Dark in the Dark Knight.
Brother of Power, the geek.
There's an answer that intimidated everyone into silence.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's the way it works. Thank you, sir. Next question over here.
Hi, I'm Carl, also from Queens, New York. And the question I had is, for everything that The Dark Knight Returns and Strikes Again did well, is there anything that stood out to you that you tried to convey that fans may not have immediately appreciated, but that you do?
Sure.
No.
See, we work really well together.
But thanks for asking.
As you can tell, those were final pages we showed you. There is no dialogue in this book. Next question over here on the right.
Hi, I'm Bradley. I'm from Queens, New York. My question is for Mr. Miller. How do you take a story that was originally intended as an Elseworlds tale? How do you react to see it so accepted into the mainstream that everybody knows this story, even though it was an Elseworlds?
Yes, sir. You got your history a little wrong. Because DC was at the time terribly embarrassed by Dark Knight, they created Elseworlds to explain it. It then became an Elseworlds book. You'll notice the word Elseworlds appeared nowhere on Dark Knight, and never has. So the creation of Elseworlds was because they were quite embarrassed by Dark Knight, and I can't blame them.
Next over here.
All right. Oh. Hello, my name is Lance Swanson. I'm from New York, Queens, New York. And my question is, while you guys were working on this project, or in your careers in general, what is the craziest, most random experience you guys have had while working on a comic book?
Keep it clean.
Jim Lee. Jim Lee, craziest experience ever working on a comic book.
There are kids here, so there was that time with Brian. No. Look, you're drawing by yourself at home.
No, don't go there.
What could possibly go wrong?
Usually in a locked room.
Yeah.
What color underwear are you wearing?
Yeah.
I might have spilled an ink bottle once in a while. That's about it.
Yeah.
The gentleman would like to rephrase.
Okay, so let me rephrase that then.
Sure.
While out pitching an idea to the investors or something, what is something that has happened that is crazy, but not too crazy?
Who? The
Well,
investors?
the craziest one I can name is that I walked into Jeanette Kahn's office and said I wanted to make Batman older and meaner and coming out of retirement, and she said, sounds good.
Over here, yes.
Hi, I'm Larry. I'm from Oklahoma, one of the old guys who bought this 30 years ago. Talking about the Dark Knight universe, somebody had to ask this question. All-star Batman and Robin? When will we see maybe the completion of that what I think is a really cool story.
Jim? Me too. No, I don't know. I'm waiting on you.
Let's go.
All right, let's do it. So is that a yes? Are we?
We just started.
All right.
All right, over here, yes.
Hi, I'm Skylar Hathaway from Brooklyn. I've got a similar question. This is targeted at Mr. Lee. The first time you got the script for All-Star Batman and Robin, when you were reading it, you know, getting ready to sit down and draw the whole thing, what was going through your head, those first, you know, those first impressions, those first thoughts?
Probably the same stuff that was going through Andy's head, you know, which is, you know, when you read it, it clearly evokes imagery that you go, oh, I could see Frank completely draw this panel. And then you go, but I can't do that, you know, because A, I don't have that talent, and B, people aren't buying the comic book for me to ape Frank, right? So in a way, you have to almost pick a different angle or a different shot that's still captures what Frank's trying to describe or the intent, but do it in your own way. And so there was a lot of that, and then also he asked to draw like a lot of animals, like little creatures and stuff, and that's not really my forte or whatever. And I was just very kind of, I had to go to Google, and there was a lot of like a lot of extra work. And I'm like, what does this frog in the foreground have to do with anything? And I'm like, but if you look throughout all his work, that is like a thing that is kind of there throughout. So like when Clark Kent and Bruce Wayne are talking on that mountaintop by Wayne Manor, there's this beautiful giant butterfly in the foreground, you know? So I don't know what it means, but it's cool. Anyway, so there was a lot of extra work on top of that, right?
It was spring.
Oh, spring. I'm sorry. Okay, all right. I was like, is it a monarch butterfly? Is it because they're kings of the world? What is the deeper
nice day.
Is it a political statement? I didn't
now
know.
we know. Now we know.
Right. So, anyway, I was overthinking it, obviously.
Thank you.
Yeah.
See, Frank, there are messages in your work that people didn't get. You were wrong about that. Over here, next question.
Hi, my name is Noah, also from Queens. We should all like hang out sometime. My question's for the panel. When Dark Knight came out, it was kind of seen as reaction to the Adam West very campy Batman. Do you think now that the Dark Knight is seen as kind of many people's first impression of the character, are we going to see like the pendulum swing back to campiness sometime soon, or maybe in some sort of weird third direction for the Batman character?
What a wonderful question. I believe that the Adam West version has as much merit as Dark Knight or anything else. I think the Adam West version was in fact delightful. I like Batmite. The wonderful thing about a character that's as rich as Batman is that he's like an unbreakable piece, like a diamond. He's so perfect that you can bounce him against the wall, put him under the highest pressure you can imagine, do anything to him and he can't break. He always works.
Thank you.
It's a great point because it's difficult to imagine any fictional character that's still existing after 75 years in people's imaginations, let alone is more popular now than
Superman.
Might not be as popular now as he was at a certain point, but Batman's like
he'll be back. And also there's characters like Moses and Jesus, so they're still around.
All right, over here, next question. Now taking all theological questions up here. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Hi, my name is Heather. I'm from New Jersey. My Jersey in the house. My question's actually for Mr. Kubert. After working on this project, do you think that's going to change your style on future projects? And I am in love with you, Frank Miller. It's an honor to be in your presence.
Thank you very much.
I take the projects as they come, and they dictate how I approach them. So it all depends what I do next, But I can't see it not influencing me to a certain extent.
Back over here, yes.
Hi, I'm Josh from the Upper East Side of Manhattan.
All right.
Yeah.
I wrote down my question. It's a little long. What or is there a specific model that you use for finding compelling dialogue for graphic novels and comics? And do you have a base? Do you model it after somebody, or does it just come naturally into your head?
Is this for me?
If you want.
Any one of the four.
Why don't you start? I'll go become next to you.
I mean, when we were doing the dialogue, we were talking it back and forth.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's based on a particular person. I use old 1940s language a lot because I love those movies. There was, when I first introduced my version of Robin, I used a speech pattern based on a neighborhood slang that was used by the woman I was then married to. But things like that, they come as they come. And it's very hard to predict how or when they're going to come. You have to have a very good ear to write. And that's the main thing. Just listen.
Oh, thank you.
Ping-ponging over here. Yes, sir.
Good morning to the panel. T.A. Ewart from SupermanHomepage.com. It's a two-part question. For Mr. Azzarello, you said that we'll like Superman based on what you're writing here. We'd like to know what you're going to like. And for Mr. Miller, there's an internet rumor going around that there's something shooting out of Superman's trunks on that cover you did. Would you be willing to clarify or dispel that, sir?
First you, Brian.
First you, Brian.
You're going to like Superman's junk.
I, sir, have no idea what you're talking about.
Next question.
Thank you for that. Yes, we made it till 11:53 before that question came up. Yes, over here.
Hi, I'm Ryan. I'm from Long Island, very snobby. I was wondering, is Sin City 3 still a possibility?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. If you can you put family values in it?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Now taking requests up here. Yes, over here.
My name is Noam. I'm from Manhattan, and I was wondering for Mr. Jim Lee if there was a specific comic growing up that really caught your eye and got you into art. And also, Frank Miller, you could pitch in if you want.
Frank, if you want to pitch in, give me a question assist, throw the ball. Well, obviously, Dark Knight Returns, man. I was a senior in college. I had kind of given up on comic books. That book came out, February '86. And it really showed me the potential of the medium. I'd seen nothing like that before, from the hand-painted coloring to the prestige format binding to the level of authenticity and maturity in the narrative, the story itself. It talked about what it meant to be a hero. Are we better served by a hero that's outside the law, or one that's the ultimate lapdog to a Reagan-like? Well, Reagan. It was Reagan in the book. And so it really spoke of that generation. It was covered by Rolling Stone, The Village Voice. It was the first book that really elevated comic books and brought it to where it is now, where you see comics routinely, regularly covered in the New York Times. So it made a huge impact on me, and it completely inspired me to shelve or kind of put on hiatus my plans to go to medical school. That's true. It's hard to believe, I know. Anyway, so I moved back home and moved back into the bedroom I grew up in. I set up a drawing table right next to my bed, and every day I woke up and rolled right into the bed, and nothing freaky happened, like that other question. But I would just draw every day, and I drew like 10 to 12 hours and a day, and I did that for about 6 months till I got into comics. So that was the book. Yep.
Well, thank you, Jim. I'm honored.
Yes, over here.
We have time for one more question on each side.
All right.
So
this
here
is
we
our
go.
question from on my left, stage left over here. Yes, sir.
Hello, my name's Connor. I'm from County Armagh, Ireland. I've come a long way just to see this panel, so to get in is a real big achievement. And my question is, the official title, Dark Knight Universe, and the surge of bonus stories to be included with Dark Knight 3, do these imply that there could be a future line of stories and books set in the Dark Knight universe, or is this just wishful thinking?
I've got one.
Yeah, why don't you answer that for us? Just say it.
Okay.
Go ahead, say it.
Dark Knight universe.
Do you want to hear the story? Do you want to read the story?
Yeah, I mean, is it implying that there could be more? Duh. Yeah, of course.
10 years
From
I'm waiting
Ireland.
for someone
Duh
to
means
say
yes,
duh on a
for
panel.
sure.
Yes.
Thank you, Brian. That's the correct answer. All right, last question over here.
I grew up in upstate New York, and I want to say thank you for showing me what comics could actually be, expanded my mind, expanded everything else in my life as well. Thank you.
That's not really.
Hi, my name is Karen from Queens, New York. I'm so glad. My question is actually for Anzi and Frank. Working on the comics, I wanted to know, was there a panel or a page that was just like, it was not working and you had to redo, and what was your process for coming back?
Andy, you go first.
Out of those first 5 pages that I sent these guys, I redid 3 of them. So, also, every time, I put whatever down on paper, I'm looking at it, I'm staring at it, I'm redrawing it. I'm usually never satisfied until I say, okay, I just got to get it out, And I'm really, I'm crazy like that. But yeah, you just go, you always try to figure a better way of doing it. And right now, it's probably, it's so obsessive. A big part of my life right now, and I'm obsessed with it. I wake up in the middle of the night thinking about this stuff. So, yeah, I think to answer your question, yeah, I keep redoing things and stuff like that.
Well, and let me tell you about a very, very strange morning I'm sure Klaus had. He had picked up my pages from the first issue of Dark Knight, and he took them home and opened his portfolio and pulled them out, and several of them folded into many different pieces because I'd been redoing the TV stuff so much that I taped them from the back with masking tape, and the most flexible comics you ever saw. So yeah, I've redone a lot of work.
All right, this has been an amazing hour. I thank you all for your energy and enthusiasm. And I remind you, your local comic book retailer is dying for you to pre-order DK3 issue 1, especially if you want to play this level of the game. Thank you, everybody.
And if you want an even deeper look at what you can expect from Dark Knight 3, well, check out our interviews with DC co-publishers Dan DiDio and Jim Lee right over there.
And for more exclusives on your favorite DC characters and stories, be sure to click subscribe to DC All Access.